The most important game in Xbox history? It was announced by Steve Jobs on an Apple stage at an Apple keynote as a Mac game. Yeah, that game was Halo. And 11 months later, Microsoft just bought the studio out from under him, made it an Xbox exclusive. And Steve Jobs got so angry that he picked up the phone, called Microsoft's CEO, and screamed at him. And Microsoft had to send somebody out to calm him down. So this is a story of the phone call that decided the console war, and how Apple found the biggest franchise Xbox would ever have, and just let it walk straight out the door. Okay, so to understand why Jobs cared this much, you've got to understand what Mac gaming actually was in the 90s. And I'll be honest with you, it was miserable. PC players, they had Doom, they had Quake, they had everything, and Mac players got ports, late ports, broken ports, or a whole lot of nothing, except for one studio. Two guys working out of an apartment in Chicago, Alex Saropian and Jason Jones. And they did the thing that nobody else in the industry was doing. They built their shooters for the Mac first. Marathon, 1994. And look, this thing was not some Doom knockoff. It had a story you had to dig out of computer terminals yourself. It had an AI that talked to you the whole game and slowly lost its mind. It had mysteries that people are still arguing about right now in 2026. I mean, look at it. That's Halo. 7 years early. But here's the part that stings. Doom sold over 2 million copies. Marathon sold less than 200,000. And not because it was worse, just because that's how small the Mac audience was back then. Then 97 rolls around and they drop Myth, strategy game, physics engine years ahead of anything else out there, where the arrows are actual physical objects and the bodies just tumble down the hills. Critics loved it. And Ed Fries, the guy who ran game publishing over at Microsoft, he straight up called Bungie the premier Mac game developer. So if you played games on a Mac back then, Bungie wasn't just a studio you liked. They were the reason you still had hope. So when Jobs comes back to Apple, and he needs to prove the Mac can actually game, there's exactly one door to knock on. He brings out Jason Jones, and the world sees Halo for the very first time. And it looks nothing. Nothing like the Halo you know. The camera's sitting behind the chief. It's third person. The Marines have ponytails. It's half shooter, half vehicle sandbox, and the entire demo is running live on a Macintosh. And then Jobs makes the promise, right there, on stage. Halo ships on Mac and Windows same day, and the crowd goes insane. Then a year later at E3, Bungie rolls out a 9-minute trailer, still third person, still coming to the Mac, and the press is calling it the most ambitious thing anybody's ever put on a screen. So after years and years of getting scraps, Apple finally had its killer game. It lasted about 11 months. Now here's the part Apple never saw coming. Because while all of this is happening, way across the country, Microsoft is quietly building a console of their own. And internally, they're calling it the DirectX Box, which, I mean, terrible name. And somehow it stuck anyway. But Microsoft's got the same problem every console maker has ever had. Hardware doesn't sell itself. You need that one game. The one people walk into the store and buy the whole box just to play. So they went shopping. June 19th, 2000. Less than a year. Less than a year after Halo was standing up there on Apple's stage, Microsoft buys Bungie. Not a publishing deal, the entire studio. And the price? Somewhere between $20 and $40 million. 22 years later, Sony paid $3.6 billion for that exact same studio. Just let that sit for a second. So overnight, Halo stops being a Mac game. It's the Xbox game now. And Steve Jobs, oh, he lost it. And look, this isn't some rumor off a forum somewhere. Ed Fries, the guy who ran game publishing at Microsoft, he's told this story himself, on the record. Day the deal goes public, Jobs picks up the phone, calls Steve Ballmer directly, and just rages at him. Because Microsoft had reached over and taken the Mac's best studio and turned it into an Xbox shop. And Ballmer's response? He fires off an email to Ed Fries with one job on it. Call Steve Jobs. Calm him down. So Fries actually flies out there and stands on a stage next to Steve Jobs at the next Macworld, promising Microsoft's going to port a few PC games over to the Mac. That was the peace deal. Apple got a few ports. Microsoft got Halo. Okay, fast forward 18 months. It's midnight in Times Square, and Bill Gates is standing in a Toys R Us, personally handing the very first Xbox ever sold to some guy. And right there next to it on the shelf, Halo. First person now, polished, locked to Xbox forever. And then it goes and does something nobody was really ready for. Roughly half the people who bought an Xbox walked out of that store with Halo 2. Half. That's one of the highest attach rates in console history. By April 2002, it's the fastest game on any new console to hit 1 million copies. And the Xbox moves 1.5 million units before the year is even out. And every analyst is saying the same quiet thing. Without Halo, the Xbox doesn't make it. So that $20 million shopping trip, it didn't buy Microsoft a game. It bought them survival. And the game that did it was built to sell Macs. So run the other timeline for a second. Just play it out. Halo ships on the Mac in 2000. Exactly like Jobs promised it would. It moves Macs. And Apple, who's sitting on iMac money and about to invent the iPod, decides, okay, gaming is worth real investment. And meanwhile, the Xbox launches with no killer app and just joins the pile of dead consoles. Microsoft walks away from gaming entirely. No Xbox Live, no Game Pass, no Master Chief on a billboard anywhere. And I know, that sounds insane. But the entire modern console war came down to a deal worth less than a decent apartment building. So what actually happened? Halo finally reached the Mac in 2003, 2 years late as a port of its rival's biggest hit, and Apple never made a serious run at gaming again. So 25 years later, Halo is one of the biggest franchises gaming has ever produced. And that very first trailer it ever had, it's still sitting out there. Steve Jobs standing on an Apple stage, telling a room full of people he's about to show them something incredible. And he was right. He was just wrong about who was going to get to keep it. Steve Jobs found Halo. He just couldn't hold on to it. And honestly, if you think that's the wildest thing that ever happened to Halo before a launch, wait until you hear what Bungie pulled at E3 in 2003. That demo everybody still talks about? Yeah, it was fake, all of it. But look, I want to know where you land on this one. Was buying Bungie the best $20 million anybody's ever spent in gaming? Or did Apple have the whole thing right there in their hands and just fumble it? Tell me.